Hello and welcome to the Information Security Summit 2025 podcast. I'm Robert Nettgen and I'm coming to you from this event recorded at the ISS 2025 conference. Today's the last day of the conference here at the Le Center Conference Facility in Westlake, Ohio. The 23rd year of the Information Security Summit conference with lots of information security professionals, vendors, sponsors, security practitioners all meeting each other and talking. And in the podcast, we're talking to lots of different folks. And today, I'm talking to Kayne McGladery. Kayne, welcome to the ISS podcast.
Robert, thanks for having me on. I'm so glad to be here. And I flew up from Nashville last night, and I'm so glad that our flights were on time.
Indeed, especially right now where the flights are, well, just a little bit nerve-wracking as things with the government shutdown progress, and hopefully that shutdown won't be too much longer.
It's a reason to be nice to the TSA officers. Everywhere I've been, I've found a local chocolate place, and I've taken them. You put the chocolates through the scanner, and then you find the duty officer, and you thank them for showing up at work because they're not getting paid right now. I feel terrible
last
about
week,
that.
and I just made it. I didn't have chocolates. I probably should have, but I did say, thank you for being here. Yeah. Seriously, yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. And the day that this is recorded is October 31st. It's Halloween.
It is.
Is this attire part of Halloween?
It is not. If you remember the plague years, 2020, 2021, yes. Right? We realized we were all like this on camera all day, yes. And I went, I could wear a kilt.
We're all two-dimensional.
Yeah, I could wear a kilt to work every day, and here I am 5 years later. I have, 16, 18 different kilts. I have kilts for different seasons.
This is everyday attire, not just because it's Halloween.
That is absolutely right. Now, the vest and the button-up is because I'm going to be on stage later today talking about cyber risk and the myth of it. But ultimately, I prefer this. I think the only time I may have had a little regret is we went up to Whistler Blackcomb for my partner's birthday one year, and Whistler Blackcomb in the winter is not known for being balmy and tropical, I should say. It was a bit cold. Made it work. What the socks are for.
So why is cybersecurity a myth?
Cybersecurity risk is a myth.
The risk. So cybersecurity is not the myth, but the risk is a myth. Tell us more.
So the premise is this. If I'm a CISO, which I am. I'm a second-time CISO at Hyperproof right now, and we do regulatory compliance. And if I'm having a conversation with somebody who's got a different background than me, somebody with an MBA, and I've got a CISSP, right? Mm-hmm. We're not going to talk the same language. If I say that a vulnerability in some system on the edge of our network is a risk, the person with the MBA, whether that's CFO, Chief Legal Officer, whether it's CEO, whether it's a business system owner, they don't understand what I just said.
Wait a minute, we can't speak in security nerd terms?
We should not. We need to learn how to convey these in business terms.
Wait, but that's a foreign language to a security nerd.
And that's why a lot of CISOs go on LinkedIn after about 2 years because they realize they don't want to do this no more because they can't convey that message. And what I've found, ultimately, if you can convey a risk in terms of business impact and business probability, that's only the start, because what we find is that if you say, look, if I were to go to our head of sales, Mike, and say, hey, Mike, if Salesforce goes down, we're going to lose $1 million of business a day. He's going to laugh me out of his office. And the reason why is, first of all, as a CISO, I don't know how much money we make on a given day. And even if I did, I don't know what controls they've got in place. And even if I did, I don't know how well those controls are being operated. And even if I knew all that stuff, if I want to say, hey, I'm going to go put in some more controls to remediate the impact or probability of that risk, I don't own Salesforce. I'm the CISO. I am not the business system owner associated with that. And what we as CISOs and other security professionals need to do is effectively communicate the ownership and the authority to make decisions about business risks to those business system owners. Now, if I'm a CISO and I decide I want to have a red team in-house, Mm-hmm. Geez, wow, that is something you might want to outsource unless you're really willing to take on, because that is a material risk to the business, but that's one of the few risks that a CISO would own. Other than that, we can advise on risks. I think it's going to be kind of like, I don't know if you know 3 layers of defense, but we're going to be the second line of defense, but we've been operating as first line of defense, which is why many CISOs just burn out really quickly.
What is the average burnout for a CISO? You mentioned 2 years.
About 18 months to 2 years.
18 months.
And it's weird because if you think about it, CEOs, 5, 10 years, CFOs, probably a decade, chief counsel, they don't leave. And CISOs, yet we've got this weird revolving door situation where you come in, you say, well, half of what the last person was doing is trash, so we're going to bin all that technology, which then causes chaos for your budget and chaos for your staff. You get 12 months in and you realize, well, none of that actually solved the underlying problems, which you failed to understand, which was a failure to communicate in business terms. And then for the next 6 months, you spend updating your resume, and then you leave a note on the desk for the next person about, here's everything you did. This is our modern hellscape of being a CISO at most organizations.
Us security nerds wonder why the business folks look at us sideways.
Absolutely, and it's because we're spending money, but we're not actually materially reducing risk in a way that they care about.
And perhaps the risk is materially reduced, but it's invisible.
That's the other thing, is that I have seen companies where they put a whole bunch of money towards some technology, and it reduces the risk, but they can't communicate it, and that comes up in either litigation or in insurance investigations, both of which are just as much fun as they sound like, where if you cannot demonstrate to a litigator under discovery, under threat of perjury, or if you can't demonstrate to your insurance provider that you had adequate controls in place, you may have theoretically reduced the risk, but when a bad thing happens, we need written evidence to show you knew what you were doing and that the board or the extended leadership team had agreed to those things.
So as you are promoting the idea of educating security nerds how to communicate with the business nerds who understand the language of business as it's been described, what are the challenges you find in reaching those security nerds?
You know, I work with lawyers, security people, and with business folks, and their pedantry tends to be a favorite thing, and the definition of the meaning of words. And I find that that is one of the biggest struggle points, is that a threat itself does not pose a risk, a vulnerability itself. And yet, as security professionals, we want to say, well, that's a risk because a bad thing could happen, but we don't go far enough. Something that I promote is the idea of doing a traditional classic business impact analysis of what would happen if this system were to go down. If you were to lose your accounts payable system versus your accounts receivable system, for example, right? If your accounts payable system goes down, right? You've got about 90 days, because most CFOs will negotiate net 90 days. So your worst thing is you've got 3 months to fix it, and if you don't fix it, cool, the CFO has to sit on money in the bank. They're not going to get anxious about that. Now, if it's your accounts receivable, though, most companies have got about a 14-day cash to close. And what that means is you've got about 2 weeks to go fix something there. So if we start framing in these terms that all the other executive team leaders understand, if we can measure the efficacy of our controls that are reducing those risks, if we can use a real-time dashboard like Hyperproof provides to actually show that and visualize that, they can now understand, cool, we're making a business decision here. Here's the system it affects. Here's how the risk is going to happen. And if it goes down, we know what steps and how long we have to go fix. Because otherwise, you can change healthcare last year, right? A hospital in this part of the country went out of business, not because of the Change Healthcare breach directly, but because they could not get money in the door. And it turns out doctors, nurses, they like getting paid. People who work at hospitals enjoy their paycheck. And yet they had not ranked their threats appropriately to understand, if we were to lose this third-party provider that sends us money, we're going to have a bad time.
So a supply chain failure caused a business failure.
Yes.
And that business was a hospital.
Yes. And it's one of the, you might have seen some news chasers, ambulance chasers, like somebody died because ransomware. Okay, sure, yes, that is a limited case. Whole hospital goes out of business and a whole community loses their only hospital? That is a much worse risk, and it has societal and deleterious effects to the whole community.
That's a real event. That's not hyperbole.
Absolutely.
And perhaps a lot of the challenge that security professionals have is that they are perceived as the purveyors of hyperbole by those to whom they speak, and not as people saying, hey, we see this risk and we want to communicate this risk to you. Mm-hmm. And your point is, yes, you want to communicate that risk, but your communication is failing because you're not using the words that the business folks are using.
Or alternatively, what I see CISOs do is they go hero mode and they're going to be, I own all the risks. Neat. And they don't have D&O, directors and officers insurance, or they don't have indemnity, or they don't have the
My
ability
friend
to
Kevin
retain.
Baker raised that in our Security Friends panel the other day.
There you go. And if you do that as a CISO, you say, I own all the risks, and you don't have indemnity, the ability to retain private counsel, the ability to fund that private counsel, or D&O like all the other executives, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Chief Security Officer is not really the officer.
No, they're not. It's in title only. And that's one of the things that for a long time, if you think of what the 2023 SEC did under Gary Gensler, where they said, look, we're going to have CISOs have a voice at the table, they're going to have a seat at the table, and we're going to report on how companies are managing their cybersecurity risks. I read those 10K disclosures. They are absolutely wild in terms of the variability. They're starting after 2 years to become a little more cohesive, but I still don't think that an average investor can understand that as risk to their portfolio adequately, especially now that we're getting AI disclosures, which everyone's over-rotating into. But the check is, if you're a CISO and your name is now, and I've seen this, like a good friend of mine was a VP of security. He's named in the 2024 by first and last name as being the person in charge of the cybersecurity program. If they were to have an event, he's got a bullseye on his
wait
back.
a minute. That's what I like to call the head coach syndrome. If you're the head coach of the team that has a bad season, they get a new head coach. So if you're the CISO of a company that has a bad year, they get a new CISO.
And that's what we've been doing when we do this hero mode thing, where we say, I own all the risks. A smart CISO will find, and this comes down to basic governance mechanisms of, you find a business system, it has a business system owner, you then have them sign off on what their risk decision was, and so that we don't get as a revolving door situation, you make sure they understand fairly what the impact of that decision is. A good friend of mine just changed their executive board reporting to show at a departmental or a business unit level, here are the business units that are buying the software with the highest risk. The first quarter they did that, nobody wanted to be in front of the board. The second quarter they did that, it was the same person who said, at the question asked them, why are you buying software at a rate 5 times that of your colleagues of other business divisions that are more risky to our business? They're in 9 months. Nobody wants to buy risky software anymore.
What is defined as risky software?
Software that either poses, in their case, they're dealing with a lot of privacy issues and a lot of highly regulated data. And so anything that where a first-party disclosure could cause a breach to them or one of their supply chains could also cause a data breach and have a high material impact to their business because that vendor does not adequately operate their controls or meet the minimum standards that they have set as part of their supply chain. Like they'll ask, hey, do y'all have a SOC 2? Well, seems normal. SOC 2 is fairly light. Right, honestly, there are vendors out there that are selling.
Wait a minute. SOC 2 is very light? There are a lot of folks who've gone through a SOC 2 who would say, what do you mean it's light?
I will say
it wasn't light on my budget.
There are vendors out there selling SOC 2 in a box, and it's it's a fiction, ultimately. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. But my point is that those vendors, if you're doing business with a vendor where they've got just the minimum checkbox compliance and they don't have any demonstrable commitment to it.
Checkbox compliance.
Yes, and that can pose a risk to our business.
As opposed to a real effort at security. Is that
Absolutely.
what you're implying?
Yes, yeah. Compliance has never been security. It's a way of showing that you're doing the floor, but we need to go further. And if you're in a highly regulated industry like healthcare or like finance, you have additional reporting controls, and if you can't meet those and you have an issue, whether first party or third party, you're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of money correcting what should have been an earlier caught issue.
Now, for the security professional who is reporting to the CFO, he goes into the CFO's office.
I've done that.
The answer is no. Now, what's the question? I satirized my previous employer as being like that. Or I'd walk into his office. He was a nice guy, but he was the quintessential fiscally prudent CFO who always was very constrained with the budget resources and was very proud of that because he thought that saying yes to anything was being excessive. And so, but at the same time, he wasn't unreachable by knowledge. He wasn't unreachable by somebody making the successful business case. And so it's incumbent upon the security professional to learn how to move beyond the language of security nerds and move to the language of business. As security professionals are here at this conference, and as they're seeking the information and they're seeking to grow in their career, and they're seeking to reach those executives, what advice would you give those security professionals who are on that trajectory to move into that role and to be able to do that communication? How would you encourage them? What would you recommend they do?
I'd say that those of us who are fortunate enough to currently be in a senior leadership position no longer should accept or tolerate the language coming upstream to us of vulnerability or CVSS score or any of the technical indicators unless it has been paired with a business impact analysis. And the reason that I say that is if we are failing to enable the next generation of our staff who are going to eventually sit in our chair, some of them, or stand at our desk, I think that we are failing them professionally. I think for those people who are earlier in their careers, it's kind of a two-parter. First of all, not everybody needs to be CISO. This is not a pyramid system. We need good incident responders. We need good malware analysts. We need people who are professional at running IR or people who are professional at running blue team. However you phrase it, not everybody needs to get into that management control role. If you choose to, don't go get yourself an MBA. That's over-rotating. But start to figure what impact, what is the probability, how do I convey this in business terms, and then start to build relationships. Make friends with legal, make friends with HR, make friends with the CFO early and their staff so you've got an established relationship and understand here's what motivates them. Because the thing I've seen is that CISOs will go forward, like you say, to your friend, the CFO, with their budget, and the CFO will say no, and the CISO doesn't know why. And they take it personally, and they don't understand. The company might be expanding internationally. The company might be dealing with supply chain disruption. There might be market issues. If a CISO or another senior leader does not have that well-rounded view of the current operational state, something we colloquially also call key enterprise risk management, if we're not doing that, we again are not going to have productive conversations.
Kayne McGladery, Why Cyber Risks Are a Myth, speaking here at the Information Security Summit 2025. Kayne, I appreciate this conversation, and thank you for being at the ISS conference.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Robert. And if you want to check me out online, I am Kayne McGladery on LinkedIn, or you can see what we're doing at hyperproof.io.
And we're coming to you from the ISS conference. I'm Robert Nettgen.